Sounds like you're smarter with chat than I am.
All right, everybody. How are you? Welcome to Cavu Velocity. I am Chad Thibodeau. Today is going to freaking rock and roll. In just a minute, I'm going to be bringing on Carla White, the author of Prompt, Publish, and Profit. She's going to be talking to us everything AI. Hey, but just a little bit of reminder, if you guys are in Velocity, you get trainings just like this, the one that I'm going to be showing you. Plus, John and I do weekly trainings. I do Monday. He does Thursday. So don't forget to jump on there live. If you forget, you can always go in the back-end portal and get those on demand. Also, if you know anybody that could benefit from this kind of content, make sure you send them our way, because we are on a mission to help people Cavu their life and their business. Well, I'm super excited today to bring on my guest. This is the one, the only Carla White. What's up, Carla?
Hey, Chad, this is fun.
I love it. So
start.
I'm looking at your background here. Like, this is like first class. Like, I don't look this classy. I'm in a hoodie, I'm in a hoodie, in my garage, and you look like $1 million. This is nice.
Well, that's a great way to start out. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
But if you could do messy bun, then you would be looking like $1 million.
I wish I had enough hair to do see, it's bald right here. Like, I wish I had enough hair to do a messy bun. In fact, somebody told me once that I should go get a toupee. And I'm like, I'm just going to get one of those where I have like a man bun. Like, that's what I want. Like a man bun. Like, I would do anything for a man bun. Like, but I'm at that age, Carla, where I grow a lot more here and here than I ever do here.
Yeah, it's just all moving, right?
It's just sad. It's just like relocating, sort of like, I don't know, the people from the East Coast moving to California for the gold rush. That's what's happening with my hair. It's moving places that I don't want it to go. So,
yeah, well,
all right.
We'll shift gears.
Hey, let me tell you something, lady. Okay. I have always adored you, and I've got your first book and we read it. I'm not a big techie guy, but when you came out with this training on AI, I'm like, I'm going to get it, but I'm a physical touch guy. Like, I got to touch it. So I didn't want to get the Kindle version. So I jumped out and I bought your book, Prompt, Publish, and Profit. And it's awesome. This is 136 pages of pure gold of how you're going to help people create or use AI to grow their audience, authority, and sales. And I love this. And we're going to talk about this book all day. But first, if you're watching this and you want just a great read, something that you can implement right now to get your business to the next level, I'm going to encourage you to do this. Where do they go to buy this?
They can go to promptpublishprofit.com/free.
Free. Well, you're going to give it to them free? I paid.
Well, they pay for shipping. They pay for the shipping.
Oh, they pay for the shipping.
They pay for shipping.
Okay. Well, I love it. So you go to promptpublishprofit.com/free. Get your free book. I paid for mine. You get yours absolutely free. All you do is pay for shipping and handling. It will come to your door. Mine came incredibly quickly. I read it immediately. When I read it, I had to jump on, give you a video testimonial. I went on to Amazon, gave you a testimonial, because as always, your stuff is great. This is fantastic. So let's jump into this just a little bit. Okay.
Yeah.
Chat GPT. Okay. I say that wrong all the time.
I know.
I wanted to learn how to do this. So I grabbed your book and I started reading it, and I jumped online and I started using some of the stuff and realized very quickly that it's just putting out generic information for me. Like, I'm not loving the stuff that I did. And so I was trying to figure out like how I could do it. So here's what I did. Okay. So tell me if you think I'm a goofball. What I decided was I was going to take Chat GPT. Is it PT or TP?
PT.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Not toilet paper.
I was going to take Chat GPTSD and I was going to do something great with it. So what I did was I pretended like this was just like a brand new copywriter that I just hired. Okay. I'm like, okay, I'm going to talk to it like a human being. So I went in there and said, like, I literally good morning. I said, good morning. How are you? How was your day? I'm like literally talking to this like a human being. And I trained it. Like, I went in and I just started teaching it and training it, telling exactly what to do. And it started working for me. And I'm not going to give all my goodies away today. We can talk through this. But one of the things that I learned about this is if you talk to this thing like a human being, it does some pretty good stuff for you.
Well, you actually like talk to it like a real human being.
Like a real human. Like,
Yeah, you do dialogue with it. But
I dialogue with it like
I
crazy.
don't say please or thank you very
Carla,
often.
it's a
I'm
lonely world, and sometimes it's the only person that talks to me. I mean, come on. So, like,
which is great. I talk to it more like it's autistic, right? Like it's not going to understand the feelings and things. So you have to be extremely direct. And I
yeah,
also talk to it like more like a programmer would.
yeah.
And
Okay,
that might not be right. I don't know.
well, I don't know. You're the pro on this. So this one I want to jump in. Our audience today are people who want to grow their audience, authority, and stuff. But I love it. Like when you come in here and you open your book, the very first headline, and this is what I love, it says 11 ways this guide will help you become famous. And I love that. I was hooked right after that first little thing. Okay. So let me tell you, did you write this book or did Chat GPT write this book?
A little of both.
Okay.
So what happened, I don't know if I shared this with you, Chad. So what happened was I wanted to create a Black Friday special November 2022, right? I wanted a Black Friday special, which was a physical book that I can send in the mail.
Right.
And I took an audio training that I created, transcribed it, gave it to a ghostwriter sometime in October, said, could you get this back to me by November 1st? November 1st came and went. November 15th came and went. No, nothing from my ghostwriter. So I'm like, crap, what am I going to do? And then Chat GPT, well, I didn't do my Black Friday special for one, but then Chat GPT came out and I thought, well, I'll try that to rewrite this guide. This training. And I did it in like an afternoon. I was like, damn, this is incredible. This is like crazy. You know how everybody reacts when they first use it. So then I decided, well, I don't want to write that book. I want to write a book about how you can use ChatGPT. So I scrapped everything that I had the first time and I started over and rewrote it. Now, did ChatGPT write this? I wrote the first version. So like if we go through those 11 points, it would be how this book will work for you.
Right.
And then I'd instruct it to write it in the tone of somebody else, punch it up more, make it sassy, make it cheeky. Cheeky is a word it likes.
Cheeky.
Yeah. The Brits taught it to be cheeky. So and so you'll get different things based on that, what you tell it to do. And then it'll, like you said, it'll just start to know what you like. If you put that little thumbs up button or thumbs down, you got to use those and train
you got to use those. So those are important.
Use those.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you thumbs up it, it says, we like this, keep going. If you thumbs down it, see, what I do is I just tell it, I tell it, I'll go in and I know it's got feelings. So I'm like, hey, it was a really good try. Thank you so much for your effort. However, I think we should take another shot at this. I didn't really like the tone. And then it'll come back and say, oh, I'm so sorry, Chat. And it called me by my first name. So it's Chat and I'm Chad, which is really great. Because I ask it, what do you want me to call it? And it says, call me Chat. And I'm like, great, you can call me Chad. And I go in and I tell it, because I don't want to hurt its feelings. And so I just, I'm grateful for the work it does. But
Okay. So here's what I teach my students, because finding tone is really super important.
Right.
When you get Chat GPT right out of the box, it's a robot, right? It's just going to talk information. And what you need to do if you want to become famous is transformation, right?
Right.
You know that. You can't just inform, you have to transform. And Chat GPT isn't going to transform with its copy.
Right.
So you figure out a tone in a way for it to talk so it understands it, but it will always constantly go in cycles saying the same things. So you have to get it out of those repeated.
So let's talk about how you,
like it's autistic, right?
Let's talk about how you do that. Cause I think I know how I would do it, but how would you do that? How would you get it to, hey, stop being a robot and start being a human?
Yeah. So first, what I would do is figure out, well, what tone should I sound like?
Right.
So if I'm working with a client and they're writing a book about marriages, repair your marriage. Well, what tone should a book about marriages be in? Well, what current authors, not
Right.
just what authors, what current authors write in this tone?
Right.
And it'll give you a list of them. And then you can feed it little paragraphs and see when you ask it to rewrite it in that tone, if it's close to what you want. So
Right.
if it is, thumbs up, good job, way to go, chat,
Yeah.
and let it know that. But then if it's not quite there, you can also say, rewrite it in this tone, and it'll start to blend two tones together.
Oh, I love that. See, what's interesting too,
Yeah.
because you can also go in and tell it or ask it, hey, you know, who are some famous authors who've written books on marriage and family? Right. And you can ask it,
Yeah.
it'll give you a list of it. And then you can
Mm-hmm.
say, like, hey, do you know Les Parrott? Right. And he'll say, well, Les Parrott wrote this and this. I'm like, great. Now, in the tone of Les Parrott, write this. Does that make sense? And
Yes.
so that's how I talk to it. Like, because, it's at my staff, we're having staff meetings. And, that's why I say you have to have a staff meeting every day with chat, right? You got to bring him along, because he's got to earn his bonus, so you do that. So I love that. So change the
Yeah.
tone. So that's one thing. How do you, so if it changes its tone, what else do you have to do to make it transformational?
So you got to make sure that you use the same chat conversation.
Right.
Okay. Don't always start new conversations, because that's like erasing, starting over. So
Well, that's what I was going to
use
ask
the
you.
same
Is there a
chat.
way to universally train it, or you got to start over every time?
Yeah, you can do that. You can get the API and train like the LLM into a special way of understanding things. So then anybody who comes in will understand, oh, this person wants to write a transformation, a book of some sort, and I understand that. And then you guide it that way. So what you need to do if you're going to do that is you connect the API, you feed it in data. So I would want to get like a big database of really good books and
Right.
train it on all those books.
Right.
And then and it's going to have to be like
Okay.
hundreds of thousands of books.
Okay, so you gotta educate me on this because I love this, because I've seen the API. I have no idea what the heck to do with it. So because there's a 2,000 word limit, like you can feed Chat GPT right now.
Right.
Okay.
If you're just having that's with Chat GPT. So the
Right.
conversation. So what I'm talking about is the GPT API,
Right.
not
So what?
Chat GPT.
Just GPT API, and then where?
API.
And so I
Mhm.
get the API. Where do I integrate that?
Yeah. So all sorts of different places. You probably need like a Python programmer to help you out. And what they could do then is integrate it, and then they slap on a front skin. So then you can have, I can show you what we created just for fun. But basically, we have like our own little robot that'll talk to people,
Yeah.
and it'll just ask the right questions, and it'll be pre-programmed to ask the right questions.
Here's what I want to do. I don't want to hijack this conversation talking about that. I want to do another conversation with you
Yeah,
on that, if that's okay. And then when we get off the air, I got some big
absolutely.
questions that I want to ask you. But our audience today, they're wanting to know how to use Chat GPT
Mhm.
to, or as I say,
Yep.
Chat GPTSD, because it gets you sometimes. They want to know how to do this. So give my audience. So they're brand new. So we're a brand new coach. We're just getting into it. Okay.
Mhm.
They've got to learn how to
Mhm.
change the tone, bring transformation. Give me your tips. So you got 3 steps right here. Do you want to go
Yes.
through these, or do you have other ones that you want to
Yes.
educate?
No, let's go through those,
Let's do that.
because what I teach in that book can be used not only in your own book, but it can be used in any teaching or speaking event that you're in.
Right.
So once you discover what you're going to say in your book, that's content that you can reuse all over the place.
Right.
And a lot of my students are like, oh, I never seen my business like this with such clarity before. So it's like wiping the fog out of the way and just having an absolute clear path. You know who you're talking to, what to say to them, and the results you're getting them. So step one is what Chad just talked about, an absolute hook at the beginning.
Right.
Really killer hooks, because you only have a few seconds. to either win them or lose them, to make money or lose money. And that hook is absolutely important. So hooks can be, you can ask ChatGPT, what are some shocking facts? What are some interesting stories? And you can just feed all that right up front. These, you got to grab them by the jugular.
Right.
And then, and get them to invest in reading all the way through. Like, what's the big payoff they're going to get for reading to the end? So that's the
because if you
hook
don't,
at the
with your
beginning.
hook, I mean, the biggest thing about hook, and you know this, and I know this, but sometimes maybe our audience doesn't, is if you don't create curiosity right at the beginning, then it's no bueno, right? I sort of put it like it's like dating, right? So like, you know, if you're on the dating market, if you're not attracted to someone immediately, or if they don't, if their personality doesn't grab you literally immediately, then you're just gonna you're gonna move on. Well, the same thing is true, because when you have information that you're trying to bring transformation with, the subconsciously people ignore you very quickly. They may not intentionally do it, but unintentionally, they're going to ignore you very quickly. And if you don't give them a reason to pay attention, then they're not going to. That's why, like, one of the things I love is, like, when you first popped up on my Zoom, I mean, I already think the world of you, but your backdrop looks amazing. You gave me a reason immediately to listen, right? Immediately.
Nice.
Because, you know, a lot of times when I do podcast interviews with people, I mean, they're on their laptop in a hotel room. Their laptop is way down here. I'm looking up at their face, and it's just like, I don't love it. But see, you put thought and energy and effort into it, and that hooked me, that grabbed me. And I'm like, okay, I want to listen and pay attention. And so that's huge.
Yeah.
So give me a couple examples of how you would teach chat on how to create a hook.
Yeah. So I would ask for shocking facts.
Right.
Yep. What are some shocking facts about this topic, niche, market? What are some shocking stories? Stories are the most incredible hooks.
Right.
And then you have to start with the way you share the story isn't how ChatGPT would share it, right?
Right.
You got to start with the shocking part first.
Right.
Those are the two main ones. I have some more, but I can't remember off the top of my head. So like with you, I wrote out, or with that book that, as you saw, I wrote 11, I believe, ways this book will make you famous.
Right.
So I wanted them to read it all the way to the end.
Right.
And so that I started out. And the other thing with that, the reason I put that right up front is that when people get onto Amazon to get the book and they preview it, everybody previews the book. Right. That's the first page I want them to see.
Right.
Yeah. I don't want them to get into dedication or all that other stuff. It's like, boom, let's jump into it. But once you have the shocking facts and the hooks and how this book is different, what people doubts or negative ideas people might have about the idea or system. That's a really big one.
Oh, that's
so you might be thinking,
oh, I love that.
This might be impossible, right? Or that this won't work for you, or what's the catch, or you know, those. So you really want to confront those doubts, any sort of reasons that they may not have to not want to go all the way through. I like to address them right up front. First pages.
Yeah.
If it's time, money, spouse, what are the usual ones, right?
Right.
Not skilled enough, don't have a big enough audience. No one's going to take me as an expert. Whatever the excuses are that they have, I address those right up front.
And what's great is you can even ask, like if you're, one thing I love about chat is if I'm having to create a fog, I just ask it. Hey, what are some of the limiting beliefs my audience may have about the desire I'm trying to get them? And it blows my mind how it just gives them to you.
Yes. And I actually have my students start there. Don't assume that you know it, because what we know as humans is only what we've consumed or viewed. And it's such a microscopic view of the world compared to what GPT has. And now they're coming out with the next version, which is going to be like 1,000,000 times bigger. So, or 100 million. And so start with that first. Like, what for example, let's say you are a spiritual healer for
Right.
dads who have kids and are entrepreneurs.
Right.
So, what sort of doubts would a target market have about my specific service? And it'll
Right.
say things like, well, is it a scam? There's no regulations,
Right.
but you're like things that you may not have thought about. And then you want to ask it again, well, why would they feel like it's a scam?
Right.
Because of this or that and the other. Why would they feel that? And because you really got to get down to speaking to what's at their heart. And really, what's at their heart, if they're like a dad,
Right.
their kids.
Right.
I want to protect my kids.
Yeah.
Right. And
Right.
they want it for their family. And
Right.
so you got to figure out, well, how is that holding them back from getting your offer?
Right. You know, it's interesting too. Like one of the tricks that I've learned just recently with it is, and I learned this because I told it, hey, write me a story that would make someone cry. And it came
Oh,
back and said, well, I'm an AI thing. You know, I don't want to say anything sad, whatever. And then I reset it. I was like, well, I'm not trying to make them cry because they're sad. I said, write me a story where I have an emotional connection. And it was really interesting what it did. Like the way that the tone that it came out. And I was able to go back and say, okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, that was a 2 in the emotional level. Let's up the game a little bit, and it spit something back out. And one thing I love about what it's doing, and I can't wait for the new release because I know that it's going to get even better. But if you can communicate to it and tell it exactly the emotion that you're trying to elicit, as long as it's not a negative emotion, then it's fine. And so what I've learned is even when it's doing an emotional connection with you, like through your hook, it'll say, well, I don't want to do this, because you can come back and say, it's not going to elicit a negative emotion. It's just going to, give them a dose of reality or whatever. And it'll say, okay, against my better judgment, here it is. And they give it to you.
oh,
And I've learned that
nice.
just recently. And I love that. So step number 1 is hook, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna write this down. Create emotional connection
Yeah.
by making them cry.
Yeah, make them cry. So, like, okay,
Okay.
so Carl, let me tell you an example. Okay, and we're going way off the rails there. That's okay. You got time? Are we okay with this? Are you good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's jam. My
So
dog may hate me. He's stuck
so
outside, but that's all right.
I did 365 days. So I wrote Hope Fuel, which is a text message service that I have. You can opt into it, and it gives you an entire year of hope. And I wrote those 100% me. No GPT didn't even exist when I wrote that. But I
Mhm.
want to take that and I wanted to turn it into a book. So I took all 365. It only let me upload 100. So I sent 100 of them in there. And I said, hey, I said, read these so you can learn my style. And it did it. And then I went back and said, okay, let's take day 1. And here's what, or I'm sorry, before I said that, I said, you and I are going to write a coffee table book based upon these days. I said, I want one
Mhm.
chapter per day for the entire year. And I said, let's practice with day 1. So I practiced with day 1 and wrote something. I said, then I went back and said, no, you're ahead of me. Listen to my instructions first. And I came back and said, I'm sorry. So I said, what I want to do is I want you to take my quote that I give, and then I want to create an emotional read for someone that every morning they can get up and they can connect with this. And then I put the things that I wanted. So I wanted to be emotional. Then I wanted them to tell a daily dad joke. This was something that I wanted in there. I wanted to have a scripture verse that went along with what I was doing, whatever. And we practiced on day 1. And after about 4 or 5 shots of doing it, we finally got day 1. And it was perfect. And then I said, do this for the next 100 days. And it just spit it out. And Carla, it was like so good. And I was like, oh my gosh, like this is the power of this stuff. And so if you're a coach and you're watching this and you're wanting to do a book or whatever, the sky is the limit as long as you're willing to
Yes.
teach it and train it. Yeah.
And I was just going to say, Chad, you are so smart. Like, I think most people would say, oh, this is garbage. It's too confusing. How
Right.
come you can get good stuff and I can't?
Right.
It's because, and it's like with any AI, whether you're using Chat GPT or Midjourney for images,
Yeah.
you got to go in and you've got to take that time up front
Right.
to train it.
Right.
Because it's not going to know, like it's like a stranger on the street. It's not going to know
Right.
who you are, what you want from
Right.
anybody. So yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So smart.
I was telling you this before. So, at our upcoming CAVU Velocity event, we have this thing like, so with all of our clients, we teach them how to use what's called an IP snapshot, a 360 IP snapshot. There's 11 different things that you have to do that you run your intellectual property through. And what was interesting with this is I wanted to see if it could do this, because this is the hardest part of my job, is helping people come up with content like this. And so I went in and I probably spent, I don't know, 2 hours educating this on, okay, here's what a declarative is. Okay. Here's the explanation. Here's all the pieces. So I went in and did this. And what was interesting, after a couple of hours, I just took one of my declaratives and put it in there and said, okay, use my IP snapshot to create content based upon this declarative. And it just spit it out. And it was so good. I mean, it took about 2 or 3 hours. But now I have it trained.
Yeah.
So now I can take anybody's declarative, put it in there, and I get it. Then I took this and said, okay, now based upon this IP snapshot, I want you to create me a starter kit. So they didn't know what a starter kit was. So I went in and taught it what a starter kit was. Then I came, I said, use the declarative to create an IP snapshot, then use that declarative to create a starter kit. And it did it. Then from that, I said, okay, let me teach you what a power post is. So I went in and taught it what we call a power post. Here's what it does, etc. Now use this declarative, run it through the IP snapshot, and create a power post. And then it did it. Then I said, okay, now I want you to create a module in an online coaching program. And it did it. And then from there, I said, I want you to take all that information and write me a chapter of a book. And holy smokes, within a couple of hours, like in this sample project that we were doing, it did it all. And one of the things we're going to be doing at our live event, we're going to be teaching people how to do that, because Carla, what you know more than anybody is, if you're smart, and most people watching this are, the computer is probably smarter. But if you can marry your intelligence with its intelligence, you can come up with something like this. And this is the magic, because like before this, we knew that you were intelligent, but now after this, you are the authority on AI.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It totally took me from a little dabbler up to, all right, can you jump on a call with me?
Right.
Because,
absolutely. And that's,
and that's what a book will do.
Right.
Any book, not just a book on ChatGPT or AI or anything like that.
Right.
Any book.
Any book. Any book. What's step number 2?
Step number 2. So, that you get the hook, then you need to share your story. I think what most people do is go into instructing. This is how you do it. But if you don't share how you learned it, people won't care how you do it. So you got to create that emotional connection. Now, Dan Kennedy says you need at least 6 touch points with your audience.
Right.
So when you have a touch point, like Chad and I have a touch point where he was one of the first people I ever met at Funnel Hacking Live event. Right. So that's that like first friend at school sort of thing. And that's a touch point, right? It keeps you connected. And so you want those with your audience. So the more that you can divulge personally about yourself and more vulnerable you can be about yourself, the more touch points you'll have with a wider audience, and they'll feel connected to you. If you don't create those touch points and you don't create that trust, they won't take the action. And that's really what your book is all about, is to get them to get on a call, buy your program, whatever it is. So, and just a little side note, it works. Like the signups on my software, the signups on my programs, everything have went up, and I haven't run any ads or anything like that. So
you don't have to, because you create a curiosity with your hook. Right. And then you connected with them. Right. So now, because like, if nobody knew who Carla was, okay, and all they saw was this would be intriguing for them. But when they get the intrigue and then they marry it with the person, with the connection, now you have built-in trust. And this is the way I explain it, is like, when I know someone, I don't feel like I have to vet someone. If that makes sense. Like, how many questions to get you on this podcast today? How many questions did I ask you about whether you were an expert at this?
None. It was like, does Tuesday 9 o'clock work?
Does Tuesday 9 o'clock work? Right. Because you've got the authority and you have the relationship, and those two things bring out transaction, which ultimately brings transformation. Does that make sense? Correct. And so I love what you're saying with that, because You know, those of you who are coaches or whatever, you know, sometimes we watch people like Russell Brunson, and I love Russell Brunson, but sometimes we look at him and what he does and we're like, oh, well, I can do that. But what you forget is like the amount of time that he spends. Like, we're rare because we know the guy. Not many people know the guy, but they feel like they know the guy because he puts all this time and energy and effort into doing things that make you feel as if you're connected with him.
Yes.
And that's where number 2 of your process is so stinking powerful, that if you just go into instruction, you're a teacher. But if you go into that, what was the word that you used, number 2? I want to use your word.
Backstory. It's backstory.
Right.
Your
when
backstory.
When you go into the backstory, now you feel like you've sort of invited them into your family. And now you're having dinner at the dining room table. Right. And that's a whole different, level. Gosh, I love that. You're brilliant, lady.
And the way you share your backstory, the formula I have for the backstory, it's laid out in the book.
Okay.
Is part of it too. Like, you
Right.
can't just start out with, I was born on a farm in Kansas, right? It's like, my backstory starts out with, I got a $20,000 client when I was struggling, and it was the easiest sale I ever made. What the heck happened?
Now
that was the start of my backstory.
Let's talk about your backstory, because you have to communicate that to your audience. But how do you educate chat on that? Do you just give it to them?
Oh, no, my backstory, I have said it so many times. I felt like I knew what resonated with people and what didn't. So, for example, I have a gratitude journal app, and when people sign up for my gratitude journal app, they get, I don't know, 12 series email that goes into my backstory, soap opera style, and with a hook at the end of each email. Right. And I deliberately leave out email number 6. Each email is titled like 1 of 12, and 6 of 12 is missing. And I'll get so many emails that say, hey, I didn't get number 6. Can you get that to me? I missed it. And that's how I know if my story is connecting with people.
If they're reading it.
Or like, if I'm not getting that, then I'm like, okay, it must be boring as anything else. That's so clever. I crafted that story, and it's from studying under some really great stage presenters and the back of this. So what I would do is I would create the format for the story, but it wasn't what I would say punched up. Right. It wasn't exciting. It's like how you and I are dialoguing, right? I'm not using a lot of exemplary words or anything like that, or getting into emotional feelings, describing the air or anything. You know, it's just straight out facts. And then I'll ask ChatGPT to punch it up and make it more interesting. And that's basically what I did that one day when it rewrote my whole book. Was I just took everything and I was like, take this dry as paste stuff and fill in the colors, because it's boring.
Yeah, but there's nothing boring about this. This is, I mean,
no, it did a great job, didn't it? Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. And I read the whole thing as quickly as possible. So
yeah.
I love
and I've got a lot of people said that they've read it like super fast.
Step number 3.
Okay, step number 3. So now you hooked up, you shared your backstory. The next of how you discovered your system. You got to have a system. So then the next logical question in the reader's mind is, well, what's the system? What is this?
Right.
And if you go into book format, you have to address the problem first. What is the problem that you're working on right now?
Right.
What are you fixing for them that's keeping them awake at night? And it could be the problem itself. Like for my friend, it's solving divorce, but not so much that, like the next layer deep. You've tried counseling, you've tried retreats, you've read all the marriage books, you've done. And so you're also taking that moment to not only position yourself as, I know what's in your head, I know what's keeping you awake at night, and I know what you tried. And I'm going to tell you why those didn't work.
Right.
So you take a good chapter and you address those. So
that's the agitation, right? Like, God, if I'm trying to lose weight, I tried Weight Watchers, I tried this, I tried this, I tried this. It's not just enough to say that it didn't work. But as an authority, if you can tell them, here's why it didn't work,
Yes.
Now what you've done is you put logic on their agitation. You've given them, oh, that's not my fault. That's that fault. Now it gives me ability now to try your way.
Correct.
I love that.
And what is my way?
Right.
So then you give an overview of what your way is with future pacing, right? You always kind of want to future pace them throughout the book. And then you go into the next chapters, breaking down your system without teaching the system.
Right. You're only telling them what they need to do. You don't tell them how to do it.
Correct.
Right.
So the way you do that is you talk about, and you can do it in story format, the problem. So there's a step, and the first step is, well, how do I write my book? Well, that's the problem. You know, you have all this stuff and you're not sure how to train ChatGPT, blah, blah, blah. We already talked about it. Well, I discovered this method, introduce your discovery, and then paint the beautiful picture afterwards. And I also like to give them short action steps so that they can get a result. The other reason is things in motion stay in motion.
Right.
Things in inertia stay in inertia. Now, at the end of the book, I want them to do something. And if they're doing something throughout the book, then the odds of them doing something at the end of it are greater. So after each chapter, I have them do something.
So let's extrapolate that just for a second in a little bit of time that we have left here. Everybody says teach without teaching, and I understand exactly what they mean, but there's a little bit of an art to that. It's not necessarily, a science, a little bit of an art.
No.
And so like, and maybe here's how we can explain it. So like, if I'm going to tell you, like, let's just take ice cream. If we're going to make ice cream, okay. And let's say my daughter comes to me and says, hey, Daddy, I want to make homemade ice cream. And I tell her, okay, hey, here are the ingredients that you need. Okay. That's the what. This is what you need to do to make ice cream. Okay. But I'm not giving her a step-by-step tutorial. That's in the paid program, right?
Yes.
So, so you could say ice cream is, composed of, dairy, like milk and cream and vanilla and eggs and whatever. And it goes through XY process. And here's the chemistry that happens behind it. When you heat it, it does this. And then when you freeze it, immediately it does this. And this is why it gets air. And this is the flavors you put in to taste good. That's what you need to do to make ice cream. But if you want to learn how to make ice cream, we'll come to my ice cream university, and I'm going to give you step-by-step instructions on exactly how you need to do what I just taught you.
Exactly. So one of my students is a little girl.
Yeah.
And her book that she's writing is How to Get Your Parents to Buy You a Bird. And so, And so she has these little tips, like give them candy, clean up your room, all these things. But her program is like when to clean up your room, what to do in your room when you clean it up, how, like what sort of candies to give them, what to write in your letters when you leave them little letters, right?
Yeah.
So she gives them the tips, but she doesn't really tell them the meat potatoes.
So like, watch this. So you and I have been telling everybody that you have to train your Chat GPT, talk to it like a human, etc. That's what you need to do. But if you're going to get the gist of it, you should join Carla's program and she'll tell you how to do it. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Speaking of that, how can somebody work with you? If they want to work with you on how to get this to the next level, how would they do that?
They can just reach out to me at Hey Carla White on Instagram. Or I've got a program where they can go to promptpublishprofit.com. Yes, thank you. /join. And there's deets on the program. Yeah.
That would be awesome, because I think it's I don't know. I just think it's incredible. Okay, let's talk through a couple of things we need to talk about. Okay. When does using Chat GPT become unethical?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah.
So I don't know what your experience have been with all the training, but my experience is no matter how much I train it, I still have to do post-production.
Right.
I still have to clean it up. And to me, I feel like, well, it's like having a ghostwriter, and very affordable one, $20 a month.
20 bucks.
And Yeah. And I still got to like do the final edits. But if you are just using it to constantly crank out and spam, to create that content overload to be everywhere, every place, I feel like, well, I know the audience will see through it and they will get annoyed by it. But if you take the time to train chat and also go in the post production and make sure what you're putting out is quality, people will appreciate it. I don't think they'll mind that it was created by AI as long as it's helping them. But if you're spamming, then I don't think that's a great idea.
Yeah, here's what I was explaining to someone day before yesterday when we were having a conversation about this. If you are publishing AI's conversation, then AI should get the credit for it. But if AI is publishing your conversation, then you should get the credit for it. So in other words, if it's actually your material, right? Like you did the work, you trained it, you asked the questions, you did the tone, you said this, and it's just literally taking you. Then it's just a speech writer. So like, the president of the United States stands up, gives a State of the Union. We all know he didn't write that speech, but it's who he is. It comes from him, even though he had other people write it. Right. So he can take the credit for it, even though somebody else wrote it. And that's the way I see Chat GPT. And one of the things that just sort of bugs me, like I watch these TikTok videos and, they'll do these things where you go on a TikTok or you go on a Chat GPT and you put this in and it's going to give you this and you copy it and you come over here and you paste it and you do this. I'm like, well, you just published that. It has nothing you in it whatsoever. It's just robotic information. And that kind of stuff drives me nuts, because I'm like, where's the intellectual property in that? And
I think people are just doing that for views, though, aren't they? I can't imagine people actually making any money off of that.
well, I don't honestly, I don't know. I just know one of my clients saw this thing where you use Chat GPT with the AI inside of Canva. And so she went in there and she said, create me, give me 20 inspirational quotes on something. And then they just did it. And then she copied it. She put an Excel spreadsheet, married it with Canva and said, okay, create this. And then she did went to some social media thing where it posted it every day. And so she was done. And so she did this training video on how to do this in 5 minutes a month was her little thing.
Yep. Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. I think it's clever, but it's not her. And that's what bugs me. And so, yeah. And so one of the things I love about you and about your book and your teaching on this is if it's just Chat GPT, there's a hollowness to it. It's it's a robot. It's hollow. And a robot doesn't have a soul. So our responsibility as authors, whether it's an author of a book or a coaching program, is to give it a soul. Give the robot a soul. And if you do that, then I think you can use it however you want, even if it's coming up with 90% of the content, because it's your energy that's into it. Right. And so I don't know. Any other ways that you think people abuse it?
Oh my gosh. Well, I think there's a ton of ways that I've seen. There's so many programs out there. Like there's an AI software out there that allows you to just type in a topic and it'll create hundreds of tweets, and you just say, okay, tweet these out every 5 minutes or so.
Right.
And that's to me just clogging up the interwebs.
Right.
It's not really producing anything worthwhile.
And I don't think it's allowing people to connect with you. And I think the point of what you're trying to teach with the backstory concept is there has to be a connection with you as a human being. And if you can do that, that can be great. Well, the book is called Prompt Publish Profit. You can go to promptpublishprofit.com/free and you can get your complimentary copy of it. You just pay for shipping. It'll come to your front door. It gets there very quickly. I got mine and it's a quick read. I think I read this whole thing, Carla, in 90 minutes, maybe.
Yeah. It's meant to be that, like a plane ride.
It was great. It was fantastic. And I refer to stuff all the time. It's really, really good. So I'm going to highly recommend that you go get this book. And then you can also jump on the same website, promptpublishprofit.com/join, and you can join her program that will help you do this exact thing. If you guys are in Kavu Velocity, then we're AI is the topic this month. We're going to be teaching you exactly how to do it. If you come to our live event, I have created a linear process, 32 consecutive prompts that you put in to a Chat GPT thread, and you can train it to be you, so then when you give it anything, it will come out as you. We'll be teaching you that at the live event, so hope you guys join us. Well, Carla, I adore the heck out of you. I admire you, respect you, love what you do. You're amazing, and thank you so much for coming on and entertaining us and educating us today with everything that you know about, well, not with everything, with just a fraction of what you know about AI, but giving us hope that, we too can use this powerful tool to get to the next level.
Oh, it's been so much fun. Thanks, Chad.
You're so welcome.